You made it. Season 2, Episode 4, The Ball Card Show, the sports podcast for the sports collector. I'm Jason Otero.
I'm Gary LeMaster, and you stepped on my half of the tagline.
Well, I can't trust you to get it right every time, and who knows what you would say.
3 weeks in a row.
Well, who knows what you would say instead. It's a risky phrase.
Is it?
Anything could happen.
I mean, I guess technically that's true, but
You miss
I feel
all
like
the
I
shots
have
you
earned,
don't take.
I have earned the right
Life is a garden.
to
Dig
give
it.
my half of that on a weekly basis, just so you know. I think
All your
everybody
base
agrees.
are belong to us.
All what?
It's like a viral video from before YouTube.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how that goes.
Well,
Like, there's a consistent conversation in our friends group thread about how I didn't realize the internet was invented before, like, I discovered TikTok.
that is kind of weird about you.
Yeah, like they all give me a hard time because I'll send something that I find hilarious, and they're like, "Yeah, we saw it 7 years ago."
This dude probably still on chat forums.
No, it's not like I rock IRC anymore.
You did host a page to stick it to the evangelicals for a while.
But that wasn't on IRC. That was just like a bulletin board.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Apologetics Redux.
you're whispering into your mic again, bro.
I'm not whispering into my mic. I'm leaning in. I'm watching the wave file right now.
Okay.
And it looks great. Nobody wants to hear this. This is not good content. You know what?
I feel like that's the first 5
You know what
minutes
you
of
get
every
for that?
episode. I'm not doing a shot of that mess.
Bro, this has to... it's like, everybody's like, you're going to do the shot. We know how this works. Just get it over
I
with so
don't
we can
want
do
to play
that.
this game.
I don't either. And the sugar is like sealed it
Yeah,
shut.
why are we playing this game if neither one
I
of
don't
us
want to
wants
play
to?
this game either, but
Why
here,
are we doing it?
Hey, here we are.
Oh, that was a girl shot. You
So-
took a sip.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Now, I shook it up, and it's better.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I don't.
I should have shaken it up last time. I think the sediment had gone to the bottom.
It's not better. Oh.
Got him. All right, so
Oh.
let's jump right in.
I don't know that I'm ready to have this conversation yet.
Well, what do you want to talk about?
I mean, we can talk about it. It's
Talk
just
about something else?
emotional damage for me. That's all.
Emotional damage. You seen that TikTok?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great TikTok.
All right. We are done with banter. I'm going to put a check mark beside that box. We're a little flat today,
Check.
aren't we? I can feel it. We're fabricating energy, and the listeners aren't here for it.
We'll get there.
All right. Well, this ought to get it going. Let's talk about the Super Bowl.
It was the most emotionally difficult 3 hours of the last, well, not the most, but the second most emotionally difficult 3 hours of the last 2 or 3 months of my life. I didn't go into the game with any expectation that we were going to win at all. I was like, we're here. If we can be competitive, I'll be happy. And then for 3.5 quarters, we dominated that game. And about 8 minutes left in the game, actually it's about 6 minutes and 13 seconds left in the game, I thought, holy crap, we're going to win the Super Bowl. And I let myself get excited. And then Tyler Boyd drops a perfect pass for a first down. And I'm not kidding you, that occurred and everything inside of me died. And at that moment, I knew we were going to lose the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there as thinking that, you know, if I'm the head coach in that situation, is it smarter for me to punt? Or is it smarter for me to go for it? And if they score sooner and it gives me more time. The defense has played really well, though, so I'm like, okay, let's punt. And then it's a 4th down. We get them to 4th and 1, and they run a very obvious reverse to Cooper Kupp, and we don't stop it. And then Cooper Kupp starts doing Cooper Kupp things, and we're doubling him, and Matt Stafford's just pumping the ball in between 2 and 3 guys. And then we get the officials who decided to officiate the game one way for 58 minutes, and then the last 2 minutes they were like, wait a minute, there's not enough people paying attention to us. Let's ruin half of America's night.
Was it 3 calls in the red zone or 2?
It was 3
Yeah.
in 5 plays. The first one
was legitimate. The other 2 were not.
So actually, yeah, one was legitimate, and it was the very last one.
Yeah, which at that point you're
It
already at the
didn't matter.
one. Yeah.
The first one was one of the worst calls I've ever seen. The holding call on Logan Wilson was horrific.
Yeah.
That entire game, the officials decided until that moment, We're letting these guys play. Cincinnati got gifted a touchdown. I will own
And
that.
Cincinnati got away with that face mask.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
But
the Rams got away with the worst offensive holding
Yeah.
I've ever seen in my life for an entire game.
Here's the thing. People talk about makeup calls. That doesn't happen. They don't say, hey, I'm going to wait until the last second in the red zone to do it. It's just poor officiating.
It was terrible.
So they missed the face mask. They should have caught.
Yeah.
But it worked out to the Bengals' advantage. But in the red zone 3 times, I literally had the feeling of like, oh, I want them to know about me. They're not going to forget. And here's the
Roger
reality.
Goodell's buzzing down. These Rams need to win.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
When somebody gets a documentary later and they talk about this game, that's going to be talked about.
It was brutal. And then the second penalty, where it was offsetting penalties. What? There was no helmet-to-helmet contact. His feet had barely touched the ground when Von Bell whacked him, which is a normal football play. You're trying to separate because the receiver has to complete the action of the catch.
Yep.
So he's just trying to dislodge the ball. And offsetting penalties when they should have backed the Rams up 10 yards and it should have been 3rd and goal from no man's land. It was literally like the officials in that moment went, well, the Rams are supposed to win according to what we were told, so we got to figure out how to make that happen. That's how it felt as a Bengals fan. Yeah. Now, are there other things we could have done throughout that game to secure the game? Yes. Am I blaming the officials that we lost? No. But did they contribute to it? Oh, you bet your ass they contributed to it.
So one big takeaway for me, I just didn't understand. Now, here's the reality. I don't know if you'll agree with me. I think you will agree with me. You have a more established, experienced, talented overall team with LA.
Oh, absolutely.
But what you have with the Bengals is momentum. I know this sounds cheesy, but there's like a chip on the shoulder in the way that LA doesn't have it. You have Burrow. But what surprised me in some of the strategy was just moving away from Mixon, moving away from the run game. And when that happened, you could feel the game shifting. Now, when you talk to all the or listen to like podcasts with like, key commentators, color commentators that are known to, be popular, it was all like, oh, I knew this. Yeah, the Rams were trying to lose this game. I didn't feel like that at all. I didn't feel like the Rams were playing poor. I think Cincinnati was beating their ass.
Yes,
it was happening.
Yes. Defensively, they couldn't run the ball at all.
And you knew, like, the thing that was the part that didn't make sense to me, the math that did not add up, was that Aaron Donald was not getting to Burrow.
Well, in the first half.
The
second half, they did.
One thing I knew, it wasn't going to stay that way.
No, for sure.
And so for them to move away from a run game, or even, what that provides when that's an established threat, even just for the blocking game, if nothing else. Yeah. So I was a little surprised with that. You could feel momentum shift a little bit. The defense was exhausted. They had done so many incredible things for Cincinnati, but they were beat. You could see it in that last drive. I honestly didn't. I mean, I was pulling Bengals all the way. That's who I wanted. It was about 3 or 4 plays into that drive, and I was like, oh, no. The momentum has shifted.
When
Stafford
Boyd
has been
pass,
dreaming of this moment. Yep. Yeah. The drop was huge from Boyd. And then you're just like, oh, no. This is one of the last – like if there was a group of quarterbacks, this is one of the last guys you want to have 6 minutes on this drive.
And not only that, but there's a certain point, and there's a lot of people who are football fans that will disagree with me on this. But as somebody who – coached for a long time, there are times when analytics matter. And as a coach, you want to show your team that you believe in them, but there's a point where you need to go Mike Holmgren and go, listen, they're going to score. We need time. So if I feel pretty strongly as a coach that we're not going to be able to stop them, my primary goal now needs to be preserving time. When there's 3.5 minutes left, 4 minutes left, and they're on the 25 and they've driven 40 yards, and they're literally just every time they run a play, it's going for 7 yards. Just tell your team to lay down on the field and let them score, so at least you give your offense a chance to come back. And then I will say we get the ball back with 1:25 left, and we have a nice play right off the gate on a beautiful. If you don't understand how beautiful that hitch to Jamar Chase that went for like 27 yards was, you don't understand football. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow set Jalen Ramsey up. He ran the hitch inside knowing that Burrow was going to throw the ball 4 yards outside of where he set up for it, and they waited for Ramsey to try to jump on the release, and then he just slid outside, and it was beautiful. And I didn't even have a problem with the third down run call. As a matter of fact, right before it, I looked at my wife and went, we should run the ball here.
Yeah.
We should run the ball here. Aaron Donald made one of the greatest defensive plays I've ever seen on that play. He literally made a one-arm tackle on a 220-pound back.
Yep.
If he doesn't make that tackle, that play goes for 10 yards, and we're in field goal range.
Yep.
Like it.
Well, that's an interesting point you bring up, because some people were arguing that we weren't too far from being able to throw McPherson in there to see if he could make that happen.
You were 10 yards away.
Yeah.
And the Rams are dropping 7, and they're bringing 4 with outside slant action, trying to take advantage of guards is what they were trying to do. And they were doing everything in their power to keep Aaron Donald away from center help. So that means he's shooting B gap, not A gap. So a draw there is a great call. And you got a timeout left. So it's like, okay, we'll get these 10 yards, and now we've got some flexibility. I loved the play call. Aaron Donald just made an insanely great play. And then the very next play, Aaron Donald made an insanely great play. And let's listen, we're talking about probably the greatest defensive lineman in the history of the NFL. He's supposed to make those plays. And good for him. I love the guy as a player, as a human being. He seems like a great human being. Good for him. And to be frank, I hope he retires and rides off into the sunset at the very top, just like this. That's the greatest way for him to end his career. I would hate to see that guy downslope. But it was what it was. It was really rough. The game ended. I literally sat in my chair and stared at the wall for about 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I went to bed. But what was interesting to me, after that game, there were people already talking before the game started. All these people buying Burrow cards. Get ready for your eBay returns. Get ready. Listen, his stuff hasn't dropped.
It's not going to.
It may be 10%, which it would have gone up 20% if he'd have won, but that's the normal off-season drop. His stuff didn't drop, guys. Burrow's the real deal. If the only thing that's going to stop Joe Burrow is if the Bengals don't do something to address the offensive line.
Which is it's absurd. It reminds me of the Tannehill rookie year. Like, that's how much he's getting touched.
I worry about him turning into Andrew Luck. That's what I worry about.
So here's one thing I want to say as somebody that's not a Bengals fan. And I don't mean this to upset you. But this was the year to take the ring.
Oh, no. I don't disagree with you.
Unless Cincinnati somehow becomes an NFC team, the road to get to the Super Bowl through the AFC over the next 15 years
is tough.
Very difficult.
The level of quarterback play in the AFC for the next decade is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to. You have 4 or 5 teams that all have a good enough offense to get there.
Yep.
And it's going to. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch, but that's the frustrating thing. And I think Bengals fans, for the most part, know that deep down in their gut.
Oh, we all know that. All the other people trying to make us feel better.
We were stealing these games.
Yeah. Everybody like, oh, you've got a great quarterback. You'll be back. No,
this
we know
was
better.
The year.
We know.
Yeah.
And
we got multiple teams to make mistakes in overtime.
Yeah, we had the opportunity. It was there. I felt like the defense did everything that it could, and I hate to hang a millstone around Tyler Boyd's neck, but man, if you make that first down catch, which is a perfectly thrown ball right in your hands, I think the game ends differently. I really do. I just think it ends differently.
Fantastic game to watch. I know everybody's going back and forth about the halftime show. I loved it. I loved everything about it.
I loved it. What I didn't enjoy was this. And
Gen Xers are the worst part of the halftime show. Sorry.
Thanks.
Well, no, it was show me. I've never met a non-angsty Gen Xer.
That's
they have
fair.
to be angsty about everything. Oh, millennials think you like this? You aren't even the same age as the rapper. Well, no shit. I was 5 watching Marino. Am I allowed to be a Marino fan because we're not the same age?
No, I really enjoyed the halftime show. Here was my issue, and it wasn't an issue with the halftime show. My issue was with, and of course, we live in a very PC society. We live in a very cancel culture oriented society. Mm-hmm. But what was killing me, and I'm not going to lie, I made a few jokes about the halftime show, mostly about Mary J. Blige and 50 Cent.
$1.50.
Yeah, well, inflation got to 50 cents.
Fat jokes.
He's a full dollar now.
None of you have heard that yet, so you're
But
welcome.
all these people talk about, why are you body shaming people? Listen, I'm body shaming people because that dude got fat and forgot.
People
That's the issue.
See, here's the thing. People that call you out on body shaming, they drastically underestimate how much people like you and I body shame ourselves.
Right. Well, and more importantly, here's the thing.
We hate ourselves.
when you are a person who has made their entire living based on a public persona, and how you look and how you create content, right? You open yourself up to that. So if 50 Cent rolls out in that show and is not wearing a skin tight wife beater with an obvious girdle underneath it and hanging upside down like he's still 27, nobody says a word about it.
But it was a flashback to when he did that in his music video.
Yeah, but it wasn't a flashback to that. It was just a fat guy hanging upside down.
This brings up a good point. I ran cross country in high school. Nobody wants to see me in those shorts.
That's my point. Same thing with Mary J. Blige. Like she can still sing like crazy. Amazing entertainer. Her hoo-ha lips were hanging out of that.
Oh, boy.
Nobody needs to see that.
Well,
we don't need to see it.
The only thing I have to say about Mary J. Blige, so she's a queen when it comes to music.
I agree.
But she was walking around like she had both knees replaced.
Well, she probably has.
In the last month, and that was the move. That was the dance move. Was like
Yeah.
knee pain, knee pain,
Yeah.
knee pain.
Notice how Dre and Snoop were like, hey, we're old. We're going to dress like it.
Eminem, though?
Eminem still is
He's
going to
be a guy that's like 85 and looks like he's 50.
He still looks the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the halftime show was good.
All right, we got to keep moving.
yeah, keep
People
going.
have heard 10 podcasts about this. Let's talk about you already touched on Burrow prices. Buy them up if you see somebody dumping them. But the people that were posting these like, oh, sell your Burrow. You're an idiot. You're a moron. You're upside down on 10 different cards.
Yeah.
You bought way too much Zion. It's not our fault.
Yeah. Well, and I was nervous. I sold a bunch of Burrow on eBay. I was nervous for returns. Never came.
Yep. Stafford, question mark. Hall of Fame? I think it's a no-brainer, in my opinion.
Not yet. He needs
What
one
is he
more.
waiting on?
He's waiting on one more.
Interesting. There's a
There-
whole host of quarterbacks with one Super Bowl that are in the Hall that nobody would debate.
Yep.
What? So,
They also won a lot more games.
yeah, give me some of those examples.
So the one that I've heard tossed around a lot is Dan Fouts. Never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But Dan Fouts won a lot more games, and his stats compared to his era were so much better than everybody else's. And that's another thing you
Yeah.
got to keep in mind. Era matters. Matt Stafford has been a really good player. It's unfortunate that he spent the vast majority of his career in Detroit.
How old is Matt Stafford now?
33. He was drafted in 09.
He's younger than me.
Yeah, 33 or 34. He was drafted in 09. When did you graduate college?
College? Well, I crammed 4 years into 5, so it's not a good example. But he's 34.
Yeah, okay.
So
I thought.
I graduated in 2007, December of 2007.
Yeah.
Even though I walked in 2008, I graduated in 2007.
He's
just so records to be clear.
He's got to win another Super Bowl or at least make another deep playoff run. He just lost too many games for too long in Detroit. It just if he got into the Hall of Fame based on where he's at right now, I wouldn't throw a fit about it. But
is there
I
part
don't
of
think
this
he
where
deserves
it's
it.
just like, guys, come on. He had to quarterback in Detroit for that many years, guys.
Well,
Give the man an award.
I mean, here's my example.
He had to
though.
suffer with Calvin Johnson. That's pretty much
Yeah.
it, though.
So here's my example as to why I don't think he's a Hall of Famer yet. Ken Anderson had a better career stat-wise compared to his era than Matt Stafford has, and Ken Anderson is not in the Hall
I
of
wouldn't
Fame.
even think of those two in the same category.
That's recency bias.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 100% recency
But
bias.
just the optics for me, that's absolutely not
Yeah.
the way I would see it.
Bernie Kosar had a better career in comparison to his era than Matt Stafford has had. He's not in the Hall of Fame. Nor should he be.
You want to hear a funny Bernie Kosar story? I don't know
Is
if
it
I
about
told
him
you.
being drunk? Because those
No.
are all the best Bernie Kosar stories.
I personally have a story with him.
Fire away.
So I was playing in the NFL Alumni Association Scramble up at the Firestone course.
Oh, golf. I thought you were about to say you were playing like a football game of some kind. I wasn't allowed.
No.
Go ahead.
God, no. Flag football fullback. I got you. So I was at this golf outing at Firestone where they do the PGA thing.
Yep.
And they surprised everybody that was at the event, and Bernie was on one of the tee boxes, and he would hit, with you and talk. And I'm only halfway listening to what's going on because there's a couple guys in my group that are huge Browns fans. So they're losing their mind. It was a surprise for the people in the event. And he starts talking about, somebody says something about, oh, I watched you on that game against the Dolphins, blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't listen to anything else that's said in the sentence because I'm excited, and I'm somebody that tries to win the crowd every time.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm going to say something about the Dolphins. And I don't listen to what his sentence was. And I said, well, Bernie, how'd that turn out? He said, that was the night I broke my ankle, and stared me in the eyes like...
That's a great story.
I made a jab at him a night that kind of altered his career.
Yeah, did he just like stare at you with like a palsy drunk hand?
Yeah.
And just like
He was so mad at me. And he had like a couple of handlers with him.
Yeah.
And they looked at me like, bro, you're on your own now.
That's like the night I almost stepped on Midget Mac.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's keep moving along. Another night for that one. Aaron Donald, buy his stuff.
Dude's a Hall of Fame. He is, we said it earlier, in my opinion, the best defensive lineman in the history of the league. His rookie stuff is still relatively cheap. He's expensive for a defensive player, but you can buy his numbered PSA 10 rookie stuff for under $500,
Now,
and that's a steal in my opinion.
Raw stuff, here's my experience with him. You're not finding a lot of people even willing to sell it.
No, not raw.
So, like, I've tried a few different, I had like a Trevor Lawrence RPA that I've been trying to trade, and just getting nibbles, but nobody's offering up anything Donald, which is interesting because with a much newer fan base and collector base, people know what they got. So if you get a chance on any Donald, let's do it. Let's move along. Let's move on to MLB, my favorite sport, baseball. But right now there's not a whole lot to talk about. We got an MLB lockout, and what we want to do is kind of go through what's going on, talk about product release, and then jump into some rookies and people to watch. So maybe a few pointers. I know right now if you're in the hobby and you're doing Series 1 breaks, there's a little bit more of a premium than normal because of the Wander stuff. But there are still some other teams, other players to watch, and maybe some ways to get in on that.
Yeah, if you can get into PYT breaks for cases and you can get the Rays for under $500.
Not boxes.
No,
cases.
cases. You can get the Rays for under $500, you're doing good. Your really best bet right now, if you want to do case breaks, is to find somebody who's doing them randoms and hope you get lucky and get the Rays. The next best team's the Red Sox and then the Angels.
Yeah.
But the Rays are where it's at this year.
Are we going to see baseball this year? I mean,
we'll see baseball.
There's lockout. I mean, everybody's supposed to be, pitchers and catchers supposed to be reporting.
Yeah, no, we might see a slight delay to the start of the season, but we'll see baseball.
Do we get the cool divisions this year? That'd be sweet.
What do you mean?
Remember with the COVID divisions where they just kind of chopped the country in three pieces?
Yeah, no, they won't do that.
We'll get
a full season.
So,
there'll just be more
just
double
a
headers.
pause. I loved that, and the thought that geographically, so as Midwesterners, if that was the case going forward, you would get to see everybody. You're within driving distance of almost everybody in 10 teams. That would have been kind of fun.
Well, there was so much of an opportunity for baseball during that COVID shortened season to try out some really cool things, and they didn't. They could have used that season to say, hey, we know that there's going to be some pushback and we try to just break this stuff into a full season, but nobody really thought we were going to have a season now anyway, so let's try some of this stuff. And because Rob Manfred's I never thought I would beg for Bud Selig to be back, but man, I wish he was back because Rob Manfred's awful.
I already told you the day that Bud Selig was dead to me. I was probably middle school, and the All-Star game ended in a tie. Now, in my family, there were random periods of time where if you had bad grades, the TV went into mom and dad's room, and it was like that until the next report card. And where I grew up, you didn't have internet. There were no phones, none of that stuff because I'm old enough for
Amish.
that. And like that was it TV wise. And report cards weren't on these like mini cycles. It was like 9 to 10 weeks. Yeah. So, but I got to go watch All-Star Game. Wait, is All-Star Game in the middle of summer?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
July.
It had nothing to do
Right
with
around
grades.
the 4th of July.
I remember I was watching it in my mom and dad's room, and Bud Selig said, "Yeah, we're gonna have to call it tie. It's kind of late. We don't want pitchers getting worn out." And that was the end of the All-Star game. From then on, it didn't matter anymore.
Well, they tried to make it matter. By now, it determines home field advantage in the World Series.
Which it doesn't matter in the NFL. Pro Bowl is a joke.
Oh,
And it doesn't matter in basketball.
Yeah.
There's no defense. I like that they at least tried some things like doing LeBron and Durant drafting everybody. But anyway, I am not a C-League fan at all. And
I'm not a Selig fan either,
Manfred
but
is-
Manfred's way worse.
He doesn't like money, is
Well, he
my
doesn't
opinion.
seem to like baseball. Like, he doesn't seem like he likes baseball. Here's my other kicker. So we had the Hall of Fame stuff happen here in the last few weeks. Obviously, Clemens not in, Bond's not in. They're off the ballot now. My frustration with that is this. I don't know how you put the guy who oversaw the entire steroid era, knew it was happening, and it wasn't against the rules. How do you put the commissioner from that era into the Hall of Fame, but keep 2 or 3 of the greatest players in the history of the league out?
And here's the
Makes
thing.
no sense.
Coming off of the strike, mid-90s, one casualty was we never got to see if Michael Jordan could figure it out. He was starting to heat it. I know that seems like a long shot, but just the more you listen and hear, like, I would love to see that happen. Secondly, the sport was dying. The fan base was dying, and I'll say this till the day I die. Steroids saved baseball.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you.
I remember going out, I think it was the summer where Sosa and McGuire were chasing
98.
each other. Yeah.
Yep.
And our family vacation, coincidentally with my dad, which if you met him, huge baseball fan, was like, we're going to go out to the card series. We're going to watch McGuire, and we got to see him hit an upper decker, and that
Yep.
was like, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
That's what people wanted to see.
And more importantly, steroids were not on a banned substance list. Listen, if you want to talk about drugs in baseball, from the 50s through the mid-80s, they had bowls of methamphetamine sitting in locker rooms.
Yeah, watch the Dwight Gooden, Darryl
Yeah.
Strawberry documentary, 30
these
for
dudes
30.
were
Yeah.
popping, they called them greenies, but they're literally taking meth every day.
And
the
drinking a
Hall-
case of beer.
Yeah, the Hall of Fame is full of guys who were meth tweakers.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? Like, what weird hill are these baseball writers trying to die on? Like, it doesn't make
And
a lot
that's
of
the
sense.
problem. You said it right there. Writers.
Yeah.
Like the some of these people casting votes, some people have votes. How in the world, what trust fund did you have that got you in the circles where
Yeah,
you're
to the
like,
BBWA. Well, and more importantly, these guys have such an overinflated sense of their own self. Like, for example, how does somebody vote against Derek Jeter? One dude votes against Derek Jeter, first ballot.
that's the same
Why?
guy that throws the flag in the red zone in the Bengals Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's
that's
just
who
like-
that is.
Yeah, I just want some attention for myself. Like,
Got his lucky bullet in his pocket, just like
yeah,
Barney Fife.
It's just like, it's dumb. But we went off the rails there too on an MLB tear.
All right,
So back to-
Series 1 release
yes, 2022
just came out.
Topps. Yesterday was drop day.
Tops is still around, still kicking, and Fanatics is going to be here for a while, from what we hear. So, big year. Obviously, the big one is everybody's going crazy over Wander Franco. Gary, you were just telling me one of the blue paper Tops cards
Yeah.
to 50,
Yes.
not sapphire,
Two of them actually.
not chrome,
Yeah, there've been
no
two,
auto.
two sales. The Father's Day of 50, the light blue parallel. There have been 2 5-figure sales. This product has been out for less than 48 hours. There have been 2 sales of $12,000 and $13,000 for an of 50 Wander Franco. His base paper is selling for $30.
But I'll say this. So if you get into a 2-box break of Series 1, random teams, chances are you're not going to hit the race.
Right?
If you do hit the raise, you're probably in $20 to $30. And the only, I mean, I would say you could count on probably 1 to 2 Wanders.
Tops.
Yep.
I
Tops? Did you do that on
Yeah, I
purpose?
No, I didn't, but yeah. So I every year on release day, I buy a hobby box of Tops. This year was no exception. I ripped my hobby box. I pulled 1 Wander. Nothing else great in the box. My 2 short print cards were nobody exciting. The thing that I came to the conclusion of when I ripped that hobby box is that this year, especially because these hobby box prices are going to start creeping up. Like Jason and I have been talking about buying a case, but you're $1,200 for a case right now.
Yeah, and honestly, the value on the paper is going to drop this year.
Yeah.
And now, I would say this. So if we did that where you and I split a case or bought a case each, I'd probably keep a box sealed somewhere.
Oh,
maybe
no,
two.
For sure. I don't think it's a terrible. But if I'm going to keep something sealed right now, I'm probably going to keep jumbo box, not a hobby box, because the hobby boxes don't guarantee an auto. It's an auto or a mem. The jumbos guarantee 1 auto and 2 mems. Yep. So, but jumbos are a couple $100 right now. Yep.
Which is wild.
Yeah. So, Wander's the big chase. There are some nice SPs. They did a really cool SP series this year, like an SSSP series for Mickey Mantle. They're like 1 every 3 cases. Mm-hmm. They're pretty rare. They also introduced it almost looks just like a Donruss Downtown series, a foil series this year that are really cool.
Home field advantage.
Yeah, but they look like a Donruss Downtown is what they're going for.
The unfortunate side is they are a Topps foil product, so you need to sleeve that before you even open the pack.
Yeah, they're gonna be a tough grade.
It's a tough grade. You're selling that raw.
So, but Wander's the big chase. I can't imagine. So I saw that somebody pulled. Topps has in Series 1 every year they have 1-of-1 artist sketch cards.
I saw one of those. Yep.
And there's full size ones and then shaped ones, and they're all 1-of-1s. And the Wander got pulled earlier today. Mm-hmm. The shaped one. I can't imagine what that thing's going to sell for.
So walk them through what that means, because some people aren't big on baseball. Baseball is known for doing more of the sketch stuff.
So a sketch card is an artist-drawn card. The sketch cards and Topps are hand-signed on the back by the artist. They are 1-of-1s. There's usually a non-die cut and a die cut version. This was the die cut version. I'll be shocked if it's not $100,000.
And that was in one of the groups we were in. Not a huge one, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some stuff you can hit in there, but Wander's the big chase. There are some other rookies in the product that are worth going after.
Yeah. Duran, the band.
Any PYT breaks, if you don't want to splurge on the Rays, the Red Sox are not a bad grab. Jarren Duran is the next rookie that people are kind of going after. He did not have a great debut last year with the Red Sox, but he showed flashes, and he's ridiculously fast. Mm-hmm. He should open the year as the everyday center fielder.
Yeah.
And hopefully he can put everything together there. Yeah. Who we got next on that list?
Brandon Marsh.
Oh, Brandon Marsh with the Angels. So Marsh is a guy who I look at him a lot like I look at Jonathan India, who won the Rookie of the Year last year. He is what he is, and he's not a bad bet for Rookie of the Year this year, other than the fact that he's going to be in the American League with Wander. Any other year, he's a guy who's probably going to hit 260 to 270. He's going to hit 18 to 25 home runs. He's going to have 80 to 90 RBIs. He's going to steal 40 bases, 30 bases. He's just a really solid player. The nice thing for him, though, is he's in a lineup. If Mike Trout's healthy, and if Ohtani is healthy, and if Joe Adell makes the opening day roster and is even 70% of what people think he could be, he's going to have a ton of protection.
Yeah.
He's still got Jared Walsh there at first base, who's a 30 home run guy. So it's not like people can go hard at him, and he's got a lot of protection. So he could be better than what he is just based on that.
Yeah. Up next is Vidal.
That's another Rays guy. So Vidal Brujan is a guy who has been a middle tier prospect for a few years. But last year he came out of the gates just crazy power that he hadn't had before. Hit 7 or 8 home runs in May in the minors. And then he cooled off. I don't think he hit more than 3 in a month after that. But he's plus arm, plus speed. Hit power, just his hit tool, I think, is a 45 or 50 grade. So average to above average hit. Power was the question mark. If he can continue to improve, and one thing I will say about the Rays is they've got a system in place that takes guys that are borderline power prospects and turns them into power guys. Randy Arozarena went from a plus field, plus speed, decent hit guy in St. Louis, getting traded to the Rays, spends 6 months in their minor system, and now he's a plus power, plus hit, plus speed. You know, he's a player.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the main rookies that I think are worth going after. There's a few other guys that are pitchers and stuff.
Yeah, but think about it. If you're getting into breaks, you know, the 3 top guys are in 2 teams.
Right.
So if you're doing these randoms, like set your expectations ahead of time. Yeah, you're probably not going to hit. So, but that doesn't mean you don't, you know, I love Topps Series 1. I love the excitement with it. I love the Topps products because it's similar to Bowman at a cheaper price point. You're stocking away rookies. Over the next few years, you get to go sort through them and see what you got, and you have a few surprises there. And one that I'm hopeful for that we're going to talk about here in just a second, MLB guys to watch for this year is Gavin Lux, who I have a ton of.
Yeah. Well, and before we get too deep into that, I want to follow up on your point about breaks with this product. Now, this is me talking to guys who are actively like doing things in the hobby. I'm not talking to the guys who occasionally buy a $20 blaster. I'm talking to guys who spend some money in this hobby. My advice to you is to only get into case breaks of this product. Single box breaks at the price point that things are going to come in at don't make sense. For example, I've seen people breaking Series 1 jumbo boxes at $20 a spot. $18 a spot. That's one team out of 30 for 10% of the price of a box on your own.
Mm-hmm.
The math there doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Just go buy a box. This is a product that's cheap enough that you can buy a hobby box or a jumbo box and not feel like you're getting just jobbed over.
Well, and you ripped one of the jumbo boxes. How many Wanders did you pull out of that?
Well, I just pulled it was a hobby, not a jumbo.
Okay.
Yeah, I just ripped a hobby. I pulled one Wander.
Yeah.
So, like, I've seen guys ripping a jumbo and a hobby in a break together at $25 a spot, $30 a spot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's insane. Mm-hmm. Like, I guess in the great grand scheme of things, you're not spending as much money, but you're also not getting anything.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Buy the case breaks, cool. I would avoid 1 and 2 box breaks.
Also, if you just enjoy watching it get ripped and you're in for 10 or $20, you know, nothing wrong with that. Just don't set expectations that are unrealistic with it.
Right.
All right, MLB guys to watch. First one I already mentioned, Gavin Lux.
Yes. Gavin Lux was the 2019 Minor League Player of the Year. Number 2 or 3 overall prospect in MLB going into 2020. That was when his rookie cards came out. Struggled a little bit, but the bigger issue for Gavin Lux the last year and a half has been that he plays for the Dodgers. And they have too many guys and not enough places to play them. He got stuck behind Chris Taylor, who had a career year. Then they traded for Trey Turner. This year, he should have second base to himself. I think he's due for a breakout. Now, is he going to be an MVP candidate? No, I don't think so. But is he going to hit 290 and 25 home runs and 80 to 90 RBIs and be a really good player and his rookie cards go from 50 cents a piece to $8 or $9 a piece raw? I think so. I think that's a legitimate and realistic expectation for Gavin Lux.
Up next, Trey Turner. You already mentioned him just a second ago, but
Oh, you skipped my second guy.
oh, did I?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith,
Pavin Smith, former number 7 overall pick. A lot of people thought it was a reach when that occurred. Buddy came up last year, and I think he played 5 different positions. He played almost every day. Nothing that he did was like, wow. But he's a guy who just seems to be starting to put it all together. And that Diamondbacks team has a lot of talent in the minor league system that's going to get some chances. I think Corbin Carroll is going to come up this year. They're going to be sneaky better than people think they are, and I think that he's going to be a big part of it. And you can still buy his Bowman firsts and his rookie cards from last year for almost nothing.
Okay. Now we can talk about Trey Turner.
Listen, Trey Turner played in Washington, overshadowed by Juan Soto. Trey Turner is one of the best shortstops in the majors and has been for most of his career. He's a monster. He is a legit 30-30, 320, 100 RBI guy year in and year out. And now he's finally on a big market team with a lot of star power around him that will be protecting the lineup. He's going to hit leadoff, and nobody's going to want to pitch around him because of everything else. I mean, if he's hitting leadoff and Mookie Betts is hitting second, what are you going to do? Yeah. He's going to continue to tear it up, and now he's in a big market. His stuff is still reasonable. It's not cheap, but it's reasonable, and there's a lot of room for growth.
Yeah. Next one is one I was a little surprised, but I liked your explanation on it. Paul Goldschmidt.
So you hear Jason say that, and you're either, if you're not a baseball fan, you're probably like, who? And if you are a baseball fan, you're like, what? Well, people forget Paul Goldschmidt had about a 6-year window early in his career into his mid to late 20s where he was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. 30 home runs, 300 hitter every year. Then he had a couple years where he kind of dipped off. Well, last year, Paul Goldschmidt went out and put up a 6.1 WAR season. He hit 297, hit 34, 35 home runs, a lot of RBIs. The benchmark for Hall of Fame now seems to be 60 WAR. Like 60 WAR or more, you're going to get serious consideration for the Hall of Fame, especially if you're a career near 300 hitter. He's 20 home runs away from 300 career home runs. He's 50 RBIs away from 1,000 RBIs. He's a career 294 hitter. 2 more decent years, he's at 60 WAR. He's 34. I think he probably plays another 3 or 4 years. I think there's a chance he ends up at 65 to 70 WAR. His stuff is not expensive now. And if he gets in the Hall of Fame, the Cardinals have a huge fan base and a huge collecting fan base. Look at the people that buy Javier Molina stuff.
Yeah, so for people that are hobbyists but are not baseball statisticians, walk through WAR a little bit.
So WAR is the wins above replacement metric. And it combines a lot of different stats, but basically it says this player accounted for this many more wins for his team above and beyond what the average player would have done. Anything above 5 is a superstar.
And it's a very comprehensive stat.
Yes, it's very comprehensive. And there's a couple different, like Baseball Reference has their own version of WAR, and Baseball Prospectus has its own, but they're all very close. But all you need to know about WAR is if a player is above 5 WAR, they're a stud. At least for that season, they were a stud. Anything getting into the 7+, 8+ range is generational type stuff. So Paul Goldschmidt had a 6.1 WAR season for St. Louis last year.
Yep. Alek Manoah.
So I don't usually hype pitchers too much. Alek Manoah is a freaking monster. Came up halfway through the year last year in Toronto, went 9-2. Almost a 2-to-1 innings, strikeouts to innings pitched ratio. He's a beast. He is an absolute beast. He jumped Nate Pearson, who had some of the best stuff in the minors until he started having injury issues. I mean, and Alek Manoah is just an absolute monster. And again, his stuff is going up, but it's still pretty cheap. And he's a pitcher, so you're not going to ever spend too much on pitchers, but he's a guy that's worth throwing a coin at and seeing what happens.
Yeah. All right. One I'm not surprised to see, Joe Adell. A lot of hype last year.
Yep, a lot of hype last year. Started out the year, it was horrible, a lot like Christian Pash was. Went back down, made a few mechanical changes, and once those mechanical changes took effect, he destroyed AAA. Just destroyed it. He's going to have a very good opportunity to push Mike Trout to a corner this year and be the everyday center fielder for the Angels. And again, it's a lineup that has a lot in it. So he's not going to get pitched around and corners tickled. He's going to get an opportunity to swing at some pitches. If he can transition those mechanical changes to the majors, he's a guy that's a high-end Rookie of the Year candidate.
All right, and then finally, Jarred Kelenic.
So Jarred Kelenic is on my list purely because I've got a hunch. People don't forget how to play a game they've played their whole life. They might struggle for a minute. They might have some issues adjusting to different competition. But when a player has consistently shown the ability to make those adjustments, by the end of the year last year, he went from a guy who was a net negative WAR player to a guy with a 885 OPS the last 5.5 weeks of the season.
The swing is pretty.
Oh, I mean, he's going to figure it out. And again, his rookie stuff is in Topps Update from 2021, and you can still get it reasonably cheap.
Oh yeah.
And he's in Chrome Update too. Like I would be buying his stuff if you can get it for the right price.
Great singles to go after.
Yeah.
For sure. That's all I had today.
Yeah, I mean, whoa, a 40-minute episode, right?
Yeah, 45, but who's
Yeah.
counting?
You.
One
obviously.
last shot of
Nope.
butter. This is how this is a tradition now.
No, it's not.
Until this is gone.
Fine.
One more. You go first.
Nope, you go first this time.
You got to do however big a shot I do.
Oh, I wish you could see his face. Oh, he's gagging. I'm not drinking that. I was letting you go first because I'm not doing it. Hard pass. I'm out.
You have to do it.
No, I don't.
That's the rules.
I don't have to do anything other than pay taxes and die.
Are you serious right now?
The look of betrayal.
I am betrayed. You
Give me
Judas.
the. Oh, I don't want to play this game
The
again.
sooner that's gone, the sooner we don't have to worry about it.
Oh, it's so bad. Guys, I wish you could understand how bad that is. And we do it all for you.
You know what's not bad?
What?
The Press Play Podcast Network.
It's solid.
If you haven't yet, check it out now. Great content, sports, entertainment, a little bit of everything. Press Play Podcast Network. You got anything else before we head out?
I do not at this point. Oh, we're going to have episode next week.
Yeah.
And then I'm on vacation for a week. So we will
Lose
have
hair.
a gap. We will have a 1 week gap coming up. So get your ball card show fixed this week and next week.
Love you guys. Bye.
Peace.